compound of marijuana, and that is used for the pain control. So medically speaking, when somebody says, well, I believe in medical marijuana, they're not just going and getting you high. They're using what they would consider the beneficial oils to get inside to those EC system receptors and to block that so that your pain goes away. And let me tell you something too, it's not a cure, it's a pain management. And we need to guard when things become pain management. Let me tell you something, that person that medical marijuana cured from epilepsy, you take medical marijuana away, and guess what's going to happen? They're going to turn right back to their epilepsy. You didn't cure anything. You didn't have brain surgery. You just managed the pain. Okay? Number two, I learned this, and this is a direct quote from the article there. It says this, from Harvard Medical School, we do not have rigorous studies and a gold standard proof of the benefits and risks of medical marijuana. Let's say it again. We do not have rigorous studies and a gold standard proof of the benefits and risks of medical marijuana. So everybody said, well, it's good for you medically. Give us the rigorous studies then. Give us the gold standard proof. Guess what? Harvard Medical School says we don't even have it. That's why many doctors are apprehensive of going this direction, because there is no concrete proof like we have for Tylenol and Advil and things of that nature. Also, I would say this. Even beneficial painkillers are restricted to a point. When Nate got burned by the coffee the other day, we were given a certain pain medicine. What was the pain medicine we were given? Well, we're not morphine, the drip that we were able to give him. No, what was it? Oxy something other. It was something, oxycodone or something. It was for baby usage, but it was oxy something other. And the ER doctor said, I think you're responsible parents, so you won't abuse this, but use this as a very last resort. Then I went to the pharmacy to pick it up, and they said, we're going to call you in a couple of days. I believe I was talking to a friend the other day when they gave her pain medicine for her foot, and the pain medicine she researched had 14 days. After 14 days of using it, what? After 7 days of using it, your body becomes addicted to that pain medicine. So even quote-unquote good pain medicine has bad realities to it that need to be prohibited when it's used. So when somebody says, hey, we should just medical marijuana, well, number one, it tells me they have no idea what medical marijuana is. Number two, they just think, a doctor gives you a joint and says, go be happy. Number three, it should have very, very strict guidelines, because we don't even have any rigorous studies or a gold standard proof that says this is good or this is bad. Now that doesn't mean we should stop looking into it, because it may be good to stop those receptors, but it tells us at this point in time we do not have something that can validate its positive usage. Medically speaking, that's a bad reason to try to advocate for the recreational use of marijuana. Number two, people say this, well, what about all the other things Christians depend on, like cigarettes and caffeine and soda and things like that? What about them? I mean, how are you going to point out to me and say, I need to stop this? What about all the other things Christians depend on, right? First off, some dependencies aren't bad. Now, I'm not advocating for cigarettes or certain addictions, but I'm saying some dependencies aren't bad, right? You depend on air, stop breathing, let's see what happens, right? You depend on food, stop eating food, let's see what happens. Some dependencies aren't bad. Secondly, even though people may sin differently than you, doesn't negate the sinfulness of your sin. Even though there are other sins, it does not mean what you are doing is not a sin. Just because somebody runs a stop sign doesn't give you the ability to also break the law on a stop sign, does it? I mean, imagine yourself speeding around. How many ever use this? You're going down the road, cop pulls you over, and he says, why were you speeding? I was just keeping up with the crowd. Anybody ever say that before, right? I was just keeping up with everybody around me. How many of y'all still got a ticket, right? Why? Because other people breaking the law doesn't mean you're allowed to break the law either. So if somebody says, well, what about all the other things people depend on? That doesn't mean your sin is any less sinful. It still is sinful. And so just because other people sin differently than you doesn't take away the personal responsibility you have in your sin. And last refutation I would give is this. Why aren't you discussing real topics that are truly killing our society, like heroin and opioids? This is what people are throwing in our face on Facebook over and over again. Why are you talking about medical marijuana or marijuana usage in cannabis when that's not the real issue that's tearing our communities apart? Let me give you a reason why we're going to talk about this, or why we talk about this topic. Number one is this. Heroin is bad. I think everybody knows that. Opioids are bad. Everybody knows that. I don't know one preacher or one church that stands up and advocates for the usage of heroin. Or stands up and says, hey, y'all should get addicted to pills and opioids. Anybody know of a church? I don't. So it's kind of a common sense given that those things are bad and should be avoided. Also, when we focus on the danger of other sin, it doesn't make the dangers of other sins any less dangerous. I can sit here and preach on heroin until I'm blue in the face. It doesn't mean marijuana is not bad. It doesn't mean there are other drugs in our life that are not bad. Just because we focus on one doesn't mean we negate the others. It just means we're focusing on one. Another reason why I think this is important and why we're discussing it is because people have this cavalier view of marijuana that it's just something you can do recreational with no harm. And I just went through multiple scientific facts that tell us that it is harmful to our bodies, it's harmful to our spirituality, and it's harmful to our communities. As a matter of fact, I believe we should talk about this topic because marijuana is killing our society. And let me tell you something, people are just okay with it. Okay with marijuana. How is it killing our society? It makes people less motivated. It brings about a certain lethargy in people's lives. They don't function as clearly as they used to. Right? How many people are sitting in their basement of their parents' or grandparents' house, smoking weed and still living, off of a minimum wage job? And people say, well, I guarantee we can pull in a couple people off the street and say, hey, why are you getting up? They're not motivated to. Another reason, it's killing and damaging brains, the very thing God gave us that separates us in our rationale so that we can think and honor the Lord with our minds, believe it or not. So it's damaging our young kids' brains. It's dumbing down our society. Also, it results in fatal car crashes, which is killing our society. And also, it breaks up the family structure when people go to jail because of marijuana possession, marijuana usage. So somebody says to us, why aren't you discussing real topics? What they're essentially trying to say is, stop talking about the thing that I'm convicted by and talk about other things that everybody knows is wrong. I'm sorry, heroin's wrong, opioids are wrong, but so is medicinal and unrestricted medicinal and recreational use of marijuana. So 3 refutations that I believe are very weak and don't actually stand the logical test as well as the biblical test for us. So that's what I have tonight for us on marijuana. That was a lot in a little bit of time, but we did good. We got 5 minutes to spare, and so the notes are here. They're there. I can print off tons more. If you're a family, I would invite you just to take one, but right now we're going to field some questions if anybody has any questions for us. Anybody have any questions in regards to what I talked about tonight? Feel free. You might say, I think you're totally bogus, preacher. That's all right. Let's talk about it. Does anybody have any questions in regards to the topic? Yes?
What do they call this when someone gets paranoid? Do they smoke marijuana? What do they call it?
Anxiety. It is. It's actually a side effect of marijuana because and it's in the studies too. Because you'll find it, I believe it's in the Scholastic study in there, that when the THC binds wrongly with your EC system and it prohibits the neurological functioning of that system, it can actually produce a certain paranoid anxiety that comes about because it's throwing off your brain function. So when people are paranoid and smoking, right, they hit a joint and all of a sudden they hear an ambulance go by and they think they're going to jail, right? That's because it actually messes with your brain system, your EC system in your body.
It increases your heart rate and decreases your blood pressure.
Increases your heart rate, decreases. Grant's going to speak on this a little bit. I just want to field some. He is. Well, Grant, real quick before we have any questions, we got like 3 minutes left. You want to say what you know from a medical standpoint as you deal with this in the field?
I mean, you hit a lot on the.
Well, come up here so you're on the screen. Come here.
And say something.
That's hot.
Yeah, you got like 2 minutes.
Okay. A little background. I'm just a paramedic frontline. I've been doing it since 2010. So I see a lot of people on different effects of both marijuana, alcohol, and drugs itself. Doing the fact of what it does to the actual physically the body, it increases your heart rate and decreases your blood pressure. So what I'm telling you is that you're actually going into shock. So if you look up shock inside the Bible, not the Bible, oh my gosh, inside a book or a medical book, it actually, what it does is it increases your heart rate and decreases your blood pressure. What it does is it vasodilates and for the blood pressure to decrease, which is not good for and you're not able to get enough oxygen to the brain and think clearly. So that's one of the things that cause confusion, and also for the when it binds the receptors. So what I'm telling you is you don't think clearly when you do something like this. It's what you're doing is that joy, the pleasure that you get from the drug itself, marijuana. It's decreasing the thought processes of what you go for. So what I'm trying to tell you is that where one thing happens, another thing's going to happen, and another thing's going to happen. So following along that line, same thing with smoking cigarettes, the same thing it does is the vasoconstricting. And what it does is take all the blood vessels and constricting, making it hard. And that's why people that's what they tell you in the doctors. It says, don't smoke because you're going to have a heart attack. They're telling you that because what it does is constrict your blood vessels and eliminates the amount of blood going into the heart. So the same thing with marijuana, does the same concept of that, but it also decreases your blood pressure. So,
All
just
right.
a little background on that. Thanks.
So it's a vasoconstrictor. Yes.
You know, from my wife used to tell me we could have as much fun on 50 cents as you could for $50 until we started smoking dope.